Have you ever noticed something strange? You walk into a room and somebody says, "It's absolutely boiling in here," and suddenly you feel hotter. Or perhaps someone mentions how freezing it is outside and you instinctively shiver before you've even stepped outdoors. This tells us something fascinating. Your experience of temperature isn't just happening in your skin, it's happening in your brain too. Now, before we go any further, let's keep our feet firmly on the ground. If you are suffering from heat exhaustion or heat stroke, psychological techniques are not a substitute for getting cooled down physically or seeking medical attention. Hydration, shade, fans, cold water, and common sense always come first. And just as I've been doing for the past 72 hours here on the south coast of England, repeatedly saying to anyone you meet, "It's hot, isn't it?" But if you are simply struggling through this heat wave, as many people across the UK are at the moment, your mind can become another very useful tool. And the science behind that is actually very interesting. Researchers have shown that mental imagery, hypnotic suggestion, breathing techniques, attention, expectations, even colors around us can influence how hot we feel. Some studies even show measurable changes in blood flow and skin temperature, particularly in the hands and fingers. Now, I know some people hear that and immediately think, "Really? Surely that's just imagination." Well, yes, but imagination is just one of the ways that the brain changes physiology. We know imagination can increase heart rate, it can make people salivate, it can make your stomach churn, it can make you blush. So, why should temperature perception be completely different? It isn't. Let me show you a few techniques that I use myself. In fact, I've been using them this very week. The first is probably the simplest. You close your eyes for a moment. You take two or three slower, deeper breaths. Then imagine standing beside an icy mountain stream, for example. Don't just see it, hear the water. Notice the cool air on your face. Feel the temperature around your ankles. Imagine kneeling down and placing your hands into that water. Then allow that cool sensation to spread through your wrists, your forearms, your neck, your face. The trick isn't trying harder, it's making the experience richer. Your brain responds to believable experiences far more readily than forced ones. So relax, believe it to be your reality, know it, really be there. Now, let's take that a step further with a little bit of self-hypnosis. If you've watched some of my videos before, you'll know I often describe a hypnotic mindset, or describe hypnosis or self-hypnosis as being goal-directed, motivated, absorbed attention with purposeful imagination and powerful expectation. Once you've settled into that cool scene, begin suggesting something simple to yourself. My face feels pleasantly cooler, or my breathing brings refreshing coolness. Each breath helps my body settle. Notice I'm not telling myself something ridiculous. I'm not pretending I'm standing in Antarctica itself. The suggestions are believable, and believable suggestions tend to be much more effective. That's a big mistake that some people make with self-hypnosis. They try to convince themselves of something they simply don't believe. So far better to work with your brain than argue with it. So here's another technique. Slow your breathing down, not because breathing magically changes temperature, but because it changes your nervous system. Try breathing in for about 4 seconds and breathing out for 6. Long, gentle exhalations. Within a minute or two, many people notice they feel calmer, less agitated, less overwhelmed by the heat. Something interesting happens when we are stressed. Everything feels more intense. Pain feels worse. Noise feels louder. Heat feels hotter. So sometimes what we're actually cooling isn't just the body, it's the stress that's amplifying the experience. And that alone can make a great difference. Here's one that surprises people. Look around your environment. Is everything visually warm? Bright oranges, reds, harsh sunlight. Research suggests colors and visual cues can subtly influence how warm we feel. Try surrounding yourself with cool blues rather than all these orangey bookshelves like I have here at the moment, ironically. Pictures of snow, waterfalls, ice, for example, maybe a screensaver of a mountain lake. I realize it almost sounds too simple, yet our brains constantly use visual information to predict how our bodies should feel. Use that to your advantage. Now, here's one thing I think is particularly powerful. Pay attention to the story that you are telling yourself, because sometimes we're not just experiencing heat, we are rehearsing it. Ah, this is unbearable. I can't cope. I'm melting. Every repetition turns the volume up. Instead, do something a little more useful. Yes, it's hot, but I've got this. I know how to help myself. I'll slow my breathing. I'll cool my wrists. I'll use imagery. I'll drink some water. Imagine that iced water reaching you inside as you drink it too. Notice the difference. One story creates helplessness, the other creates control, and perceived control consistently reduces stress in psychological research. Another useful approach is something psychologists call attentional control that I speak about often. The more we scan our body looking for heat, the more heat we notice. Of course, sometimes the most effective thing you can do is become deeply absorbed in something enjoyable, a conversation, a book, a puzzle, some music, an interesting podcast, not because you are denying the heat, but because attention works rather like a spotlight. Where you point it matters. If you really want to um, combine these ideas, here's a routine that I would suggest. First, use the physical methods. Okay, cool water, shade, hydration, fans. Then take 2 minutes of slow breathing. Then close your eyes. Then imagine somewhere deeply refreshing. Add gentle hypnotic suggestions of coolness spreading through your body. Open your eyes to calming blue colors or images of water if you had them, and remind yourself, I'm coping well. I have ways to help myself. You're not trying to trick your body necessarily. You are giving your nervous system every opportunity to work with you rather than against you. So, a final thought, I think one of the most valuable things that psychology gives us isn't the promise of superhuman abilities. It's the reminder that we're not passive passengers. Our thoughts influence our physiology far more than a lot of people realize. Not perfectly, not magically, but meaningfully. Especially when we combine good psychology with sensible physical actions. So, during this heat wave, take care of yourself, drink plenty of water, keep cool as much as you're able, sleep where you can, and don't forget your mind can be a very valuable portable cooling device. And anyway, I hope you found this useful. Stay cool. I'll see you next time.